Hey, Kyle is wonderful here again with another wrestling review. This time it's NJPW Strong from June 25th, 2022. And that's NJPW stands for New Japan Pro Wrestling. And this is the show that they tape in America, and they use a lot of the people from their Los Angeles dojo. This has all kind of happened within the last. They've had the dojo for longer than they've had the show. The show's been around a few years now, and the dojo's been around maybe 5 or 6. So all part of New Japan trying to break into America, and very timely on that. Just tonight, Sunday, June 26th, it will be the Forbidden Door pay per view, which will feature some of the New Japan Pro Wrestling Dojo guys. A lot of the guys we saw in last week's episode in that 6-man tag will be on the pre show tonight. Like Yuya Uemura, Tom Coughlin, and just getting added since Tomohiro Ishii got injured. Clark Connors, who's been tearing it up in Japan, he was at the Best of the Super Juniors. Clark Connors from America and the LA Dojo has been on Strong a lot, featured on NJPW Strong. He's been missing from this set of tapings since he was overdoing Best of the Super Juniors, and then when AEW said that they were needed a New Japan representative, New Japan put together a little four-man tournament where you can go check out my reviews on those. Those the New Japan Road shows. Clark Connors had a really good showing in his 2 matches, just falling short in the finals. But then Ishii had to pull out of the actual 4-way match that's going to be tonight at Forbidden Door for the All Atlantic title. He had to pull out of that. Ishii did, and Clark Connors gets in. So we've got a lot of LA representatives on tonight's pay-per-view Forbidden Door. So this is a really good time to get into New Japan Pro Wrestling Strong if you've not gotten into it. This show in particular was amazing. So this is a great jumping in point. You can get it right on njpwworld.com along with all the rest of the New Japan shows. So let's get into it. This is the third Strong show from the Collision in Philadelphia tapings. It was originally recorded on May 15th, so that's the exact same day as Best of the Super Juniors started. That's how long ago we're kind of talking here. I'm pretty sure this is the last show from these tapings, and I think we starting next week we start the first of the Ignition tapings in Los Angeles, and those were held in June 19th. So just recently. Excuse me. So we got some big matchups tonight. We've got Minoru Suzuki taking on Tony Deppen, the former ROH TV champion, making his strong debut here. David Finlay's going up against Danny Limelight. And then in the main event for the NJPW Strong Openweight Championship, it's champion Filthy Tom Lawler defending against Fred Rozier, formerly known as Darren Young from WWE and the Nexus and stuff. So that match has been building for a while, and they have a video package later on where I'll go through. It was a really good video package explaining their feud between Fred Rozier and Tom Lawler, and that match ends up being amazing, way better than I could have ever imagined. So definitely this whole episode every week it's about an hour long, and it comes out on Saturdays. So this main event was amazing. So, and then this added stipulation to this match is if Fred Rozier doesn't win the title, he must be released from his NJPW Strong contract. So this feud's been building for a while. I'll get into the feud a little bit later. Our ring announcers, who have been for a little bit for a few months now, it's Ian Riccaboni, the former ROH play-by-play man, and his color commentator Matt Ringwald, who you've also seen on Impact Wrestling doing color commentary. He's formerly known as Aiden English from the Vaudevillains and of Rusev Day fame in WWE. So Danny Limelight comes out first. He represents Team Filthy, of course, his boss or whatever you want to call it in the main event tonight. But Danny Limelight will start us out. He gets on the microphone right away and calls everyone bozos and tells the crowd to shut up. Pretty funny heel promo there. And Danny says it wasn't too long ago that he picked up a big win in DC. He's talking about I almost thought he meant like it was talking about DKC for a second, but he meant I think it was called Capital Collision or something like that. It was a New Japan cross promoted show with New Japan Strong, kind of like a Forbidden Door type pay-per-view, but with their LA dojo instead of AEW. So anyway, that what he was referencing is it was Team Filthy won a 10-man tag where David Finlay, Danny Limelight's opponent in that, was also a part of that match, and Team Filthy won. So Danny said he showed the whole world that David just floats by on his last name when he hit me from behind with a shillelagh. And that's the last name that hasn't meant anything in over 15 years, Danny Limelight says. He says David's little brother Brogan probably has more fight than David. I don't get that joke. I think I've heard about Brogan. At least I've heard about David having a brother that wrestles. I don't think he's talking about like a 5-year-old. And then Danny says, I'm gonna beat him so bad that Fit's gonna have to send out his favorite son, Hornswoggle, to come save him, which was a funny line. Ian on commentary says, once Danny was done, Ian says that Danny left out the part where he mule kicked David right before the shillelagh shot happened, or before the shillelagh shot happened. So David comes out looking mad. So Danny bails the ring when the bell rings. Danny takes the shillelagh and is twirling it around mockingly. And this just makes David even more mad, but he's able to catch Danny, who kept trying to run away, but he's get caught. David gets a 1 count after a float over suplex. Then works over Danny's arm and hits 2 big European uppercuts. Those look nice. Danny was able to break free and hits a dragon screw leg whip on the rope to David Finlay. Danny then works over David's leg and hits a fisherman suplex. Danny poses to the crowd a little too long before making the pin and gets a 0 count, a rare 0 count. David tries to make a comeback now, but he gets chop blocked to the hurt knee that got hurt on the dragon screw leg whip earlier on the ropes. So chop block from Danny Limelight gets him back in on top here in control. Danny's dancing around a little too much after that, which gives David a chance for a comeback. David fires up, but he waited a few seconds too long after the initial comeback started, and the crowd really didn't pop for it. So just a little I know, like, he probably knows a lot better than me. I've never been in the ring, but it looked to me like he needed to do his comeback punches after making the comeback a few seconds earlier than he did, because by the time the crowd was really hot, and then by the time he starts making the comeback punches, the crowd was quiet again. So just needs to speed up on that. You got to take care of your momentum right when you can. I just recently watched, if you guys have kayfabe commentaries on YouTube, they just released last night an old from like 2015. It's Raven going around the independent shows. This particular one, he gave his new tag team. They've only been in the business about a year, a whole new gimmick, and then he worked. You got to watch Raven work through an entire match with them. So he was pointing out stuff like this and really hammering home that you gotta, when you get that momentum on the comeback spot. So I just watched that earlier this morning. Definitely go check that out. It was very interesting. If you've never heard wrestlers talk out an entire match before, or like a veteran telling, you could definitely see that's the kind of thing they would do here at the dojo for the youngsters or for young lions, where they have a veteran in the back explaining what they're going to do in this match and why things work, and waiting for the youngsters to come up with like things to say, and then they say, oh yeah, that works, but make sure you do it right here because you don't want to lose the momentum, and then the crowd's not going to cheer as much. So I had just watched that before watching this, and then I saw a perfect example where David Finlay got the comeback from the crowd here and broke free and reversed, but then waited, like, all it took was like 3 seconds of waiting before he gets the comeback punches right after the comeback was initially made, and the crowd had already quieted down by the time the punches came, and they didn't cheer for the punches at all. So that's something that David's going to have to work on, and definitely go check out that Raven thing on kayfabe commentaries on YouTube, because I found that very informative for someone that's never been in the business. I've only been watching for 30 years, but never been in the business. Anyway, David had just made that comeback going back to this match, David Finlay versus Danny Limelight. We get a really nice Blue Thunder bomb, and David gets a 2 count. Danny then counters a suplex into a knee bar or a heel hook, one of the two. They might even be the same. But a huge backbreaker puts David right back in charge. We get a Trash Panda, which is a modified Ushigoroshi looking type move from David Finlay. That is his finisher for the win. A Trash Panda is another name for a raccoon, but I don't really know why. I don't get the raccoon reference with David Finlay. If anybody knows, let me know. But that's what a trash panda is, and that's the name of the Ushi type move. David Finlay gets the win. The crowd likes Finlay a lot, but his music definitely is not. He doesn't have. He has terrible music. David Finlay needs to get some better music. And I'm not saying he needs to come out with "I love the fight," but like I'm not saying he needs Irish music. It's just this is so generic and bad sounding. Anyway, Finlay extends his hand even after all the stuff with Danny Limelight. So Finlay looking to bury the hatchet here, but Danny spits in his face. So David Finlay knocks Danny Limelight out cold with the shillelagh. And David, on his way back, talks to the camera like they do a lot of the times in New Japan, in Japan the Japan shows. But however, this camera in America doesn't pick up any of his audio. So David Finlay talks for like, I don't know, 15, 20 seconds on his way to the back to the camera, but we don't get to hear any of it. So if you're a lip reader, you could have maybe picked it up. I wasn't, maybe I should have gone back and tried to read his lips, but I was laughing at the fact that we couldn't hear his audio and writing that in my notes instead and just moved on. So maybe I didn't go back because the next thing we see is backstage or like some other location in a video format is Great O'Khan front and center with his fellow United Empire members around him. We see Aussie Open in the background, Aaron Hanare to his right, Jeff Cobb to his left. And we get subtitles in English for Great O'Khan speaking Japanese. And Great O'Khan says, "Bow down, peasants. We, the United Empire, are taking over the next NJPW Strong show. It's going to be NJPW Strong Rising. No, United Empire Rising," he says. So this is Great O'Khan talking. Then Will Ospreay pops up into the picture and says, "Let me give you an easy translation. The United Empire are calling out the world. We are ready to take on everyone or anyone, and we are ready to take over New Japan Strong. This is the United Empire Rising. Crowns up, boys." And they all pose to they all do the pose with the crowns up as the camera pans out, and then we see TJP was there too. So TJP getting cut off almost from this entire segment. That was funny, but no Francesco Akira in this shot, if you were wondering. So TJP and Francesco Akira just recently on Monday won the junior heavyweight tag titles, IWGP junior heavyweight tag titles. So if you missed that, definitely go check out my review on that one. Also, Kushida made a return on Tuesday, so check out my reviews on those. And I noticed that that was the end of the segment, but I did notice when the camera panned out that everybody is wearing United Empire Chicago shirts with like the Chicago flag in the center. So another sign that they're we're gonna get a big United Empire presence at tonight at Forbidden Door. And then so apparently maybe we won't, like I was saying at the beginning of this review, maybe we're not getting the first of the June tapings, or maybe that is part of the first of the June tapings, but it looks like we're getting a special episode next week called United Empire Rising. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. So I'll be here to review that next Saturday. So we go back in the arena after that cool segment, and Tony Deppen's making his debut for NJPW Strong. And Tony comes out with the crazy eyes, and Ian Riccaboni puts over that he's a madman. The crowd gives Tony some great cheers, and that's because Tony's from nearby in Pennsylvania. And so somewhat of a hometown guy here. He was wrestling in Philadelphia a lot, getting big cheers from the crowd. Minoru Suzuki is his opponent. Suzuki gets his full entrance, which never gets old. One of the great entrances in all of wrestling. Big cheers for Suzuki as well. Everyone, especially in America, just shows Suzuki so much respect. It's great to see. And Matt Ringwald on commentary yells at Ian Riccaboni to not look in the eyes of Suzuki so that Suzuki doesn't maybe come over and beat him up. That was pretty funny. Suzuki gets in the ring and gives the crazy eyes back to Tony Deppen, so I laughed at that. The crowd chants for both men, so it's definitely even split here. And it might have just been everyone cheering for both men, dueling chants, but everyone talking for or cheering for both. Anyway, the match starts with some classic grappling, just what I love to see here. Tony gets a hold of Minoru's arm, but Suzuki counters it into a heel hook. Tony then gets to the ropes to cause the break, but Tony gives Suzuki a middle finger while doing that, so Suzuki gets mad and keeps the hold on until the ref gets the 4 on his count. Deppen then tries to get a leg kick, but Suzuki fights back. Tony then gets some strikes in and charges forward, but Suzuki counters this charge into a high triangle on the arm tied into the ropes. That was really cool looking. Then the action spills outside the ring. Suzuki chops Tony on two of the sides of the crowd so that the crowd can really hear. Those were really loud, and the crowd gave those some great reactions. So great spot there. Now in the aisleway, or like the entrance way, Suzuki goes all the way back to the start of the entrance ramp. It was more than just an aisleway. I don't think it was angled, but Suzuki gets a running start and punched Tony right in the chest, who was like sitting down. So that was a cool spot again. Suzuki gets back in the ring as the ref starts counting. So Tony gets in. Suzuki maintains control, getting a hammerlock on the arm. Then we get some joint manipulation on the wrist and fingers. That was a nice spot again. Really good match here. Suzuki goes for the gotch pile driver, but Tony Deppen fights out with some knees. Tony gets a bunch of strikes in and hits a Meteora in the corner to a seated Suzuki. Suzuki then hits a haluva kick in the corner and gains back control. That was a great move there. Suzuki then starts disrespecting Tony, paintbrushing him with his boot and slaps to the head. So Tony gets back up mad and they exchange forearms. And the crowd starts chanting, "You effed up" at Tony for trying to exchange forearms with the god of exchanging forearms, Suzuki, the king. Tony Deppen then stays on his feet, even though he's getting beat up here with the forearms. Tony Deppen stays on his feet and even gains the advantage for a little bit here. Tony Deppen gets multiple forearms in a row, but Suzuki just laughs at this. So all around, this is exactly the kind of stuff I love watching. Then one big forearm knocks Tony Deppen to the ground, almost unconscious looking. He does a good job of putting his arms in like a rigor mortis state. Suzuki then waits for Tony Deppen to regain consciousness and get back up, and Suzuki lets him get the first shot. So Tony Deppen hits a couple forearms, but then hits a pump kick into a driver looking maneuver, and then Suzuki kicks out of that. Tony then sets Suzuki up in a sitting position and hits a running forearm from behind, but Suzuki kicks out of one. Tony Deppen can't believe it. The crowd's chanting, "You effed up." Tony then tries a chop, but Suzuki locks in the sleeper, quickly transitions into the I think there was a crossface in there as well before transitioning into the gotch pile driver. And then Suzuki delays it in the air, hanging Tony upside down for a while before crashing him on his head. 1, 2, 3. Suzuki gets the win. Great match here. The ref goes to raise Minoru Suzuki's arm after the match, but Suzuki brings the ref in for the gotch pile driver, but then he lets him go. He was just kidding. But the ref looks terrified and runs away. Suzuki then claps and high fives with children on his way to the back, and that's hilarious. That he's just such a intense individual, but also good with the children. That's funny and great. So being able to watch Suzuki in all his action and all the stuff Suzuki does throughout the years with like beating up young lions or referees and stuff like that, and just really being a master of grappling and like that really gives me an idea of what it might have been like to grow up around Stu Hart or even be trained by Stu Hart back in the day. I feel like Suzuki is definitely a Stu Hart kind of guy. So we go to an ad break after that, which you can skip over when you're watching on demand. And when we get back, well, it's always on demand because these are tape shows. When we get back from break, we see a really good video package explaining the whole Fred Rozier, who again, formerly known as Darren Young in WWE, and then Fred Rozier and Filthy Tom Lawler's big feud here. So if you haven't been keeping up with Strong, I'll explain the feud like they did in the video package here because they did a great job of explaining it. Fred says that NJPW Openweight Championship means the world to him. He needs that title more than life itself. And the fact that Tom Lawler has the title is eating him up inside. So then they show when Fred Rozier was the first person to ever pin Tom Lawler on NJPW Strong. And then after that match, all of Team Filthy cut and shaved Fred Rozier's hair off. Then later on, they had a title match since Fred Rozier got that pinfall on Lawler. In the title match, Lawler was just barely able to keep the title with a foot on the rope and then made Fred Rozier pass out with a rear naked choke. And so Fred did not tap out. He passed out. After that, Tom Lawler said he's going on vacation. And Tom then later on says, "Well, only once you've proven yourself, Fred, will you be worthy of another shot." So eventually, Tom has Royce Isaacs and Jarrell Nelson, who are a tag team and part of Team Filthy. So a well-established tag team with cohesive chemistry against one man and Fred Rozier in a handicap match. Um, if Fred can win, Tom will give Fred the title shot, but Fred lost that match. He fought his best, but he couldn't beat an established tag team on his own. Then Tom says that he liked Fred better bald once Fred was asking again for a title shot and saying it was like BS that he had to win a handicap match. So Tom Lawler says if Fred Rozier cuts his hair, he will get a title shot, which was a little weird, but whatever. So Fred shaves his head bald and gets the title shot. But then Tom Lawler says if Fred loses this match, he must leave NJPW Strong. He must void his contract with NJPW Strong. So lot on the line here, and stipulations like this usually spoil the ending, which I don't like when endings are is potentially spoiled. But if you've been watching wrestling long enough, you know that it's not always the case. We've seen plenty of people that had to leave and then later return, or maybe they never return, but they actually do leave. Or if you're in TNA just fires people live on air for real that and they didn't even know it was going to be real. So it's not a guarantee that a stipulation like that spoils the ending, but a lot of times it does. So that's really the only complaint I have about this. The whole build, the feud was great. Other than I don't know why Filthy Tom Lawler wanted him to shave his head again. That was just weird. Other than being like a good storyline point, but anyway, um, the only thing I don't like is the stipulation where he would have had to leave, but it does add more drama to the match if you just take it as in face value as someone that like isn't knowing what to expect or what you know what I mean. So it did add to the story here, and part of the story also Fred comes out first and he's bald. So I guess that's part of the story as well. Fred Rozier comes out bald. He gets good cheers from the crowd. But the crowd was definitely louder for the Tony Deppen and Suzuki match right before, not only for this entrance here, but throughout the entire match. And that could be because I'm pretty sure this was the main event of the tapings. So they had this sit through 3 weeks of tapings. So probably 9 matches. This is probably the ninth match in a row. And they try to have main events for each one of those weekly shows. So there was some big matches, including a hometown Tony Deppen versus legend Minoru Suzuki right before this match. So the crowd was a little burnt out. I'll give them excuse on that one, which was it's not the fault of the guys in the ring, but another thing that prevented this match from being a true classic was that the crowd just wasn't going as crazy as they probably should have been. But like I said, you could tell they were burnt out. So um, Filthy Tom Lawler comes out dancing around and looks carefree, like he isn't worried whatsoever. Fred tries to jump him from behind before the match even starts, but the referee gets in the way. Legendary NJPW referee Tiger Hatomi comes in to present the title like the referee usually does, but he's not the ref. He's just a special ambassador for Strong. Retired a few years ago. He had been reffing for New Japan Strong all the way up to maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And so I write down here just like looking at Tom Lawler coming out like dancing all carefree and cocky, and knowing the fact that Tom Lawler, well, first of all, Tom Lawler's in G1 this year, one of the surprise entrants, and G1 starts in I think July 15th, somewhere around there. So first of all, I was thinking, well, they'll have Tom bring the title around, show off the Strong title in Japan on his tour of the G1. That was my first thought, and my second thought, seeing him walk out all cocky and dancing here, is they're gonna have Tom Lawler join Bullet Club by the end of the G1, aren't they? I could definitely see that happening, which would be interesting since Lawler has his own faction over here in America. So we'll see where that goes. That's definitely a possibility, though. So Tom goes for the rear naked choke, which is what finished Red Rozier off in the previous title match. Uh, Tom goes for that right away as the bell rings, but Fred's able to fight it off. Fred starts strong with some strikes, and Tom hits a spinning heel kick to gain control. That was nice looking. Tom then dives to the outside and takes down Fred, and the announcers know, well, Tom doesn't dive that much, so Tom's definitely showing that he thinks this is a tough fight. But we already knew that coming into this from all the ducking of the match that Tom's been doing, that Tom does kind of fear, or at least knows that this is going to be a tough fight. And Tom gets his leg dropped on the apron, which also got caught up on the ropes, so in an interesting spot here. And Tom then kind of sells his leg and maybe his back a little bit too, because he kind of got jarred. I don't know if that was what they were going for, if that's just what happened, but it did add a little bit to the match here. And it did look painful. So Fred is all over Tom once it gets back in the ring, but Fred throws Tom back out of the ring. So a lot of in and out here to start. Fred runs halfway around the outside of the ring for a running clothesline, and that spot did not look very good. Take that out of the repertoire. Tom gets his shoulder driven into the ring post, so working over the arm here by Fred. Fred works over the arm a little more after that, so he's got maybe a little bit of hurt back, leg, and arm going into the beginning of this match. Fred having his choice to choose which one he wants to go after as the match goes. Tom tries for a power bomb, but Fred from the Tom tries a power bomb to Fred from the apron to the outside, which would have been nasty, but Fred's able to hold on to the top rope, which was a pretty dangerous looking spot because Tom was really selling the fact that he was trying to pull him from the rope, so he was tugging at Fred pretty strong, and I know that like the rope can be sweaty and they're sweaty and the rope might be slippery. I should have said, but because if he loses grip there, it's gonna be a nasty landing. But Fred's able to hold on and counters this. Then Fred runs the length of the apron for a seated senton onto a laying down Lawler. So that was a cool spot. Fred then hits some strikes when they get back in the ring, and Tom's looking in trouble at this point. I got to imagine the heat spot's coming soon because Fred's in control for a while here. So Tom Lawler kicks out of any pin attempts, but he's using up some of his energy on those. And then right on cue, Tom counters and throws Fred out of the ring. To first gain some, just catch his breath, and then Tom jumps from the apron to a backpack chokehold. I don't know if that's a technical term, but he's all his weight with a leg vine across the torso in a chokehold. Fred tries to break free, but Tom drags Fred up the ramp while still having the hold on. So that was weird looking, but also kind of cool. Then a spot that I don't really remember seeing very often. It almost seems like something you would see in like 1993 WCW, but Tom Lawler drags Fred Rozier through the curtain to the back. The camera does not follow them to the back, but then we hear comically almost like chairs banging around and loud bangs and stuff. So Tom then runs back through the curtain and to the ring, and the announcers note that Tom Lawler has blood, literally has blood on his hands, and the referee starts the countdown. It goes all the way to 20. Don't forget New Japan Pro Wrestling rules with the 20 count instead of 10. And Fred crawls through the curtain, and he has blood pouring all the way, all over out of his forehead. So, I was thinking maybe they like a spot like that. You could almost put like Halloween store like red liquid on your head, but no, this was legit and it was nasty. So, like I said, Fred Rozier crawls through the curtain. He's got the red stuff pouring down his forehead. Then we've got uh, members of Team Filthy run out and try and block the aisleway, which is kind of narrow for Fred to get back into the ring. Like they weren't going to punch him or anything, and they were just going to make it hard for him to get through. So some of Fred's friends come out, including like David Finlay, I saw there, come out and run off the rest of Team Filthy, some of the other baby faces on the roster, and they clear the path for Fred. Fred stumbles and bumbles, but just gets right back in. Gets back in the ring just before the count ends. And while Fred is a mess, it is coming out like a sieve. And so the referee backs off Tom Lawler so that the doctors can go look at Fred, who has it all over his body. And it's only coming out of his head, but it's all the way through the torso and legs. It's just everywhere. Somehow this match just continues a few seconds later after the ref looks at him. Of course, this isn't live, so they could have stopped, but it didn't look like they did. Tom springs into action, trying to end it right away. Fred catches a punt kick and then hits another dragon screw leg whip. So working on the leg again. Fred's strikes have no power behind them. Fred is losing energy fast here, literally out of his forehead, and Tom's able to fight back from these really weak strikes. We get some nasty knees to the open wound from Tom. And then while supporting, so Tom's now on Fred Rozier's back. And while supporting all of Tom's weight and his, and just already having lost a bunch of energy, the two men exchange forearms because it's now like Tom's now hanging from his legs to in the front of Fred, and they exchange forearms while Fred has to support both of their weight. That was a great looking spot. Fred, with every ounce of his energy left, hits a really weak looking running DVD after this. So it was weak looking on purpose. Fred was really selling that he has almost no energy left. So he was like stumbling on his runs in a really slow run, then hit the move like safely, but still made it look like he was weak in the knees. Really good stuff there. Great selling. Lawler then hits two exploder suplexes, and Fred no sells both, getting right back up. The Hawk no sell, and Tom hits a pump handle suplex. Fred stays down on this one, but is able to kick out at 2. And I write down awesome match so far. Wow, this is great. Tom goes for a top rope move now again, so kind of going out of his element. But Fred Rozier is able to get an arm up to counter with a lariat, and both battle back. Both battle some more. This is the only time I didn't really write move for move, but they battle a little bit more and then take a quick breather on the mat, and they end up on their knees on the apron outside of the ropes while holding on to the ropes. Fred gets a slam to Tom on the apron after this, and Tom immediately gets a chokehold on. So Fred is able to get free, like slip out, probably because all the blood makes him slippery to get out of a chokehold. And Fred is able to hit a tombstone pile driver on the concrete. There's a mat there, but he didn't hit it on the mat. He hit it even further out on the concrete. So big move there by Fred Rozier. Fred rolls in Tom Lawler in the ring, and Tom does the Rikishi bump off of a lariat, big time lariat. And Fred hits another big slam, but Tom's able to kick out at 2. And this is where I know that I wish the crowd was going crazy. I would have been going crazy if I was in the crowd, and maybe they were burnt out from a long taping. But both men get up and they exchange a few more strikes until Tom gets the chokehold back on. The crowd's now getting a little bit louder as they rally behind Fred. So they did get loud for the rally spot here. Fred gets dropped on his head with a really nasty looking driver, but is able to kick out at 2. And then Tom's so mad that he snorts out snot all over his face and is able to wipe it off, but gross. Tom hits another suplex and Fred kicks out. The crowd is trying their best to like get loud, but you can just tell they're just as worn out as the wrestlers are at this point. Ian Brickabani points out that Fred Rozier's mother in the crowd, so you know exactly what's going to happen now. You never have the mom there for a loss, usually, unless you're Bret Hart. But Fred kicks out of another big move. Lawler motions that he's going to end it. Lawler either bites or kisses the open wound. It was really nasty, and then locks in the rear naked choke. Fred was still on his feet at this point and is fighting it. He runs back to the turnbuckle, not able to break it. Fred Rozier drops the one knee, but is able to get back up. Then Fred Rozier, still having Lawler on his back, climbs up the ropes at the corner, and Fred just jumps backwards and breaks the hold. But Tom quickly locks the chokehold back in. Fred reverses it immediately into a rear naked choke of his own. Fred transitions this into the crossface chicken wing. And if you remember, if you followed this man's career when he was Darren Young, he was taught the crossface chicken wing by Mr. Bob Backlund himself. Tom fights this, but once Lawler ends up on his stomach with the hold still locked in, Tom is forced to tap out. The crowd cheers loudly at this point. Tiger Hatomi comes back in the ring and presents Fred Rozier with the title, and the second ever NJPW Strong Openweight Champion is Mr. No Days Off, Fred Rozier. I couldn't be more proud for him. I've been watching him since 2010 on the original NXT when it was a game show all the way till now, and he seems like a genuinely nice person, a great guy. Couldn't be more happy for him, and he definitely takes his no days off motto and nicknamed Seriously. He tries on and works very hard. So Fred celebrates as Ian and Matt really put over the new champ and the match itself. Great stuff all around. The great announcing, great. My only complaint was the crowd, and that's not like anybody in the company's fault. They can only they have to run tapings where they tape like 3 shows, so that means you have to have like 9 matches at a taping. This match was right up there. If you guys watched Rampage and you saw the amazing Andrade versus Ray Phoenix, this one's right up there for match of the week so far for me. But that Rampage match just ekes it out. Because it had, even though it was kind of a luchador kind of spot fest type match, high pace, high intensity match, it had just enough selling and storytelling to make it not like a Young Bucks type spot fest and stuff. So this match was amazing as far as storytelling. The one that we just watched with Fred Rozier and Tom Lawler. The storytelling was so good. It was just about as good as Okada versus Jay White at Dominion a few weeks ago. So after Fred celebrates for a while, he gets on the microphone and he runs down a little bit of his history, saying, "I was in the Nexus, the Primetime Players. I was a protege of Mr. Backlund, but then he says that New Japan Pro Wrestling Strong is by far my favorite." He then thanks his mom and his dad, who his dad he says is his biggest hater. His dad asked him, "Why aren't you in AEW?" Fred then says AEW told him no twice. WWE told him no 40 times, but Fred is glad to have ended up here, and hard work pays off. So then he think also Fred's about to go, but then he remembers that his 82-year-old grandfather is also in the crowd, so he thanks him and then leaves. And Ian Riccaboni says, "We'll see you at the Forbidden Door and goodbye." So, wow, if you did not watch this show, if you've never watched a New Japan Pro Wrestling Strong show before, definitely go check this out. This main event had some of the best storytelling in the title match all year, any company, and I just really got invested in this storyline. So you don't even need to have followed everything. You get that video package they show right before the match explains everything perfectly, and um, definitely just check out the entire episode because the second match was also amazing. Tony Deppen versus Minoru Suzuki wasn't very long and a really great match. And also the first match wasn't amazing, but still, if you get a chance to see David Finlay, if you've never checked out David Finlay, the son of Fit Finlay before, David Finlay's a 4th-generation wrestler, and he started out as a young lion in New Japan Pro Wrestling back in like 2006. So he's been training under the New Japan Dojo for a while now. So a lot of stuff to check out. 2 really good matches. One of them amazing, definitely above 4 stars, maybe 4.5 stars. I might have to bring it to just the 4 because of the crowd, but go check this match out. And I'm going to get going, but I will be back tonight. We've got AEW/NJPW Forbidden Door. I'm going to try my best to get on right as it comes live, but or right as it ends live. But if I'm not on right as it ends live, I'll definitely have the review up before tomorrow morning. So thanks for tuning in. And if you like this, I've got other strong shows reviewed on this channel, as well as all the NJPW events, all the AEW shows, all the WWE and NXT shows, including UK and Impact, MLW, and NWA as well. So plenty of stuff to go check out if you're a wrestling fan. Show me support with a thumbs up and a like, and give me the subscribe if you really enjoyed what I do. So hope to talk to you guys again soon, and have a great day. Peace.